There is a woman in Shanghai who wakes up every morning at 5:30. She does not reach for her phone. She does not check her messages. She does not scroll through news headlines or social media notifications. Instead, she boils water, pours a single cup of tea, and sits in silence for exactly 10 minutes. Then she walks to the park near her apartment, moves through a slow sequence of Tai Chi for 20 minutes, and returns home. She is 63 years old. She has no therapist. She takes no medication for anxiety. She has never heard of a mental wellness app. And yet, every person who meets her describes the same thing: a stillness, a clarity, an almost magnetic calm that fills the room the moment she enters it. How is this possible? Because she practices something that Chinese culture has understood for thousands of years, that the mind, like the body, accumulates toxins, and just like the body, the mind needs a daily practice of cleansing, not once a year, not when things fall apart, every single day. In Chinese, they call this jingxin, quieting the heart-mind, and it is not a trend, it is not a hashtag, it is an ancient system of mental hygiene that has kept an entire civilization mentally grounded for over 2 millennia. Today, I am going to show you 8 specific Chinese habits that detox your mind, habits backed by modern neuroscience that most of the world has never heard of. And if this video is already shifting something in the way you think about mental health, then stay with Sino Living. Hit that subscribe button now. Before we begin, let us acknowledge the reality we are living in. According to the World Health Organization's September 2025 report, more than 1 billion people worldwide are now living with mental health disorders. 1 billion. That is roughly 1 in every 8 human beings on this planet. In the United States alone, SAMHSA's 2024 National Survey on Drug Use and Health found that 23.4% of American adults, 61.5 million people, experienced some form of mental illness in 2024. Anxiety disorders affect 19.1% of the adult population. Major depressive disorder affects 15.5%. And the National Alliance on Mental Illness reports that the average delay between the onset of mental health symptoms and the beginning of treatment is 11 years. Meanwhile, our daily habits are making things worse. According to Harmony Hit's analysis of 2024 data, the average American spends 5 hours and 16 minutes per day on their smartphone alone, a 14% increase from the previous year. The CDC's 2025 Youth Health Report found that teenagers with high daily screen time were more than twice as likely to report symptoms of depression, 25.9% versus 9.5%, and anxiety, 27.1% versus 12.3%. We are overstimulated, overconnected, and overwhelmed. And the tools most people are offered, another app, another subscription, another pill, often add noise to a system that is already drowning in it. Chinese culture offers a radically different approach, an approach that does not add, it subtracts, it does not stimulate, it quiets. It does not treat the mind as a machine to be optimized. It treats the mind as a garden to be tended. And the 8 habits we are about to explore are the tools of that garden. The first habit is the oldest and the most powerful, Jingzuo. It translates literally to quiet sitting. It has been practiced in China since at least the time of Lao Tzu and Confucius, over 2,500 years. The Neo-Confucian philosopher Zhu Xi, who lived from 1130 to 1200 AD, formally recommended Jingzuo as a daily practice for mental cultivation and moral clarity. It was not religious meditation in the way many Westerners understand meditation. It was simply this: sit still, breathe, let the noise settle. And modern neuroscience has confirmed exactly what these ancient thinkers knew. A 2024 review published in Frontiers in Psychology by Calderoni and colleagues, which synthesized findings from across the field of mindfulness neuroscience, concluded that mindfulness practices, particularly mindfulness-based stress reduction, improve emotional regulation, alter brain structure in regions associated with self-awareness and empathy, and significantly reduce anxiety. Pascoe and colleagues' systematic review, cited over 847 times, found that meditation practices reduced cortisol levels, systolic blood pressure, and heart rate across multiple study populations. Chinese families do not call this meditation. They do not wear special clothing or light candles. They simply sit, often in the morning, often for no more than 10 to 15 minutes. They close their eyes, slow their breath, and allow the Xin, the heart-mind, to become still, like water that has stopped being stirred. This is the foundation upon which every other habit rests. The second habit is one that billions of people do every day, but almost nobody does the way the Chinese do it: drinking tea. In China, tea is not caffeine delivery. It is not a morning accelerant grabbed on the way to a desk. Tea is sha jiao, the way of tea, a meditative practice that has been refined over 15 centuries. The act of boiling water, selecting leaves, pouring slowly, watching the steam rise, smelling the aroma before the first sip, each of these steps is a deliberate exercise in present moment awareness. It is, in essence, a mindfulness ritual disguised as a beverage. But there is also hard science behind it. A 2025 comprehensive review by Dashwood, published in Nutrition Research, analyzed the evidence on L-theanine, an amino acid found almost exclusively in tea leaves, particularly green tea. The review found that L-theanine increases alpha brainwave activity, the same brainwaves associated with a state of calm, focused alertness. These are the same wave patterns that neuroscientists observe in experienced meditators. Baba and colleagues' 2021 study published in Nutrients found that L-theanine contributed to improved attention, enhanced working memory, and better executive function in middle-aged and older adults. So when a Chinese grandmother sits down with her cup of Longjing tea every morning and tells you it clears the mind, she is not speaking in metaphor. She is describing a neurochemical event. L-theanine is crossing the blood-brain barrier, modulating neurotransmitter activity, and shifting her brain into an alpha wave state. The ritual slows her down, the chemistry calms her system, and together, they create a daily mental reset that costs almost nothing and requires no prescription. These are the kinds of connections between ancient wisdom and modern science that we explore here on Sino Living. If this is giving you value, hit that like button. It genuinely helps. Now, the third habit, and it is one you have likely seen but never truly understood. Every morning, in virtually every public park across China, you will find groups of people, many of them elderly, moving through slow, flowing sequences of physical movement. This is Tai Chi, known internationally as Tai Chi. It has been practiced for centuries, rooted in Taoist philosophy and martial arts tradition. But its most profound impact is not physical, it is mental. Kwong and colleagues published a systematic review and network meta-analysis in Frontiers in Public Health in 2024, analyzing the effects of different types of Tai Chi on anxiety and depression in older adults. The pairwise meta-analysis revealed that Tai Chi was significantly more effective than control groups in reducing anxiety, with a standardized mean difference of -1.19, and in reducing depression. Yin and colleagues' 2023 study, published in the Journal of Affective Disorders, went further, comparing Tai Chi directly to non-mindful exercise. Their conclusion was unambiguous. Tai Chi is more effective in reducing anxiety and depression and improving general mental health than conventional exercise. And it does this through a mechanism that Western exercise science is only beginning to understand: the integration of breath, movement, and focused attention into a single unified practice. The Chinese call this concept Shen Xin He Yi, body and heart-mind as one. Tai Chi does not separate physical health from mental health. It treats them as the same system. This is why a 70-year-old Chinese grandmother practicing Tai Chi in a park at 6 in the morning is not exercising. She is performing a complete mental detoxification, lowering cortisol, calming the nervous system, and reconnecting body and mind, all before most of the world has finished checking their phones. Chinese culture does not have a word for forest bathing. That term, Shinrin-yoku, belongs to Japan. But the underlying practice, walking slowly and deliberately through natural environments, is deeply embedded in Chinese daily life. In cities across China, morning and evening walks through parks, along rivers, beneath trees, and around lakes are not recreation. They are routine. The Chinese call it sanbu, to stroll, to walk without hurry. It is considered essential for both physical digestion and mental clarity. The science behind this is now overwhelming. Park and colleagues' landmark 2010 study, which measured physiological responses across 24 forests in Japan, found that forest environments promoted lower concentrations of cortisol, lower pulse rate, lower blood pressure, and greater parasympathetic nerve activity compared to urban environments. Lee's 2022 comprehensive review, cited over 211 times, confirmed that exposure to forest environments reduces urinary adrenaline and noradrenaline and lowers salivary cortisol, contributing to measurable stress management. And then there is the threshold study. White and colleagues published a landmark paper in Scientific Reports in 2019, now cited over 1,863 times, which found that spending at least 120 minutes per week in nature was associated with significantly greater health and psychological well-being. Below that threshold, the benefits were inconsistent. Above it, they were robust and consistent. 120 minutes a week. That is roughly 17 minutes a day, the length of a single Chinese morning stroll. Chinese families are not reading these papers. They do not need to. They have been walking through nature every day for generations, not because a study told them to, but because their bodies and minds told them to. Science is simply catching up to what the practice already knew. This habit will surprise many of you, but in China, calligraphy is not just an art form, it is a form of mental therapy. Shu Fa, the art of brush writing, requires a specific combination of cognitive demands that is almost unique among human activities. The writer must control breath, posture, grip pressure, stroke direction, ink quantity, and spatial composition, all simultaneously. Every character demands focused attention. Every brushstroke demands present moment awareness. The mind cannot wander. It must be completely still and completely engaged at the same time. Xu and colleagues' 2013 study, published in PMC, found that the practice of Chinese calligraphy produces a distinctive pattern of cortical excitation, specifically, an increase in theta rhythm brain activity, which is associated with deep cognitive activation combined with a state of physiological relaxation. The researchers noted that brush writing resulted in measurable decreases in heart rate, blood pressure, and respiration rate. In short, calligraphy simultaneously activates the brain and calms the body. Xiao and colleagues' 2023 study, published in the International Journal of Environmental Research and Public Health, went further. They found that Chinese calligraphy handwriting training stimulated the brain, improved cognition, reduced psychological symptoms, and enhanced hand stability in individuals with mild cognitive impairment. Their conclusion was direct: it is inexpensive, accessible, and worthwhile. In many Chinese households, an older family member practices calligraphy daily, often in the evening, after the day's work is done. It is their way of writing out the mental clutter of the day. Each stroke releases a thought. Each character restores order. By the time the brush is set down, the mind has been quietly and completely cleaned. Now here is a habit that is not ancient at all, but it follows an ancient principle. Across China, particularly among older generations and increasingly among younger people influenced by the digital minimalism movement, there is a growing cultural practice of deliberate screen disconnection. They call it Fang Xia Shouji, put down the phone. It is not an app. It is not a scheduled digital detox week. It is a daily boundary, a conscious decision to create periods of the day where no screen is touched. The science supporting this is profound. Calvert and colleagues' 2025 study, published in JAMA Network Open, examined the effects of a one-week social media detox on young adults. The results were striking. Anxiety symptoms reduced by 16.1%, depression symptoms reduced by 24.8%, and insomnia symptoms reduced by 14.5%. In just 7 days. Setia and colleagues' 2025 Comprehensive Scoping Review, also published in PMC, concluded that digital detox interventions may alleviate depression and problematic internet use, and that individuals with higher baseline distress appear to benefit most. Chinese families, particularly those who maintain traditional rhythms, naturally build screen-free zones into their days. Morning tea is screen-free, meals are screen-free, evening walks are screen-free. They do not think of this as a detox. They think of it as basic mental hygiene, the same way washing your hands before eating is basic physical hygiene. The ancient principle behind this is Wu Wei, effortless non-action. Lao Tzu taught that sometimes the most powerful thing you can do is stop doing, stop scrolling, stop consuming, stop reacting, and in that stopping, let the mind return to its natural state of clarity. Over 2,500 years ago, Confucius's student Zhengzi made a statement that has echoed through Chinese culture ever since. Every day, I examine myself on 3 points. In my interactions with others, have I been faithful? In my dealings with friends, have I been trustworthy? Have I practiced what I have been taught? This practice, Fen Si, meaning to turn inward and examine, is the 7th habit, and it is one of the most underestimated mental health practices in the world. Every evening, in many Chinese households, there is a quiet period, sometimes just 5 or 10 minutes, where the day is mentally reviewed, not with judgment, not with anxiety, but with the calm clarity of an observer watching water flow past. Western psychology arrived at the same conclusion independently, but only in the 1980s. James Pennebaker, a psychologist at the University of Texas at Austin, developed what is now known as the expressive writing paradigm. In his foundational studies, he asked participants to write about their deepest thoughts and feelings for just 15 to 20 minutes a day, for 3 to 4 days. The results, replicated in over 200 studies, showed significant improvements in immune function, reduced anxiety, improved mood, and measurable decreases in stress markers. Beike and Wilhelm's 2005 review, cited over 1,200 times, confirmed that expressive writing produces benefits across biochemical, physical, and psychological health markers. The Chinese practice of Fan Si predates Pennebaker by 2,500 years. The mechanism is the same, processing the day's emotional residue so that it does not accumulate. The Chinese understood that unexpressed thoughts and unexamined experiences do not simply disappear, they sediment, they build up, and eventually they become the anxiety, the insomnia, and the restlessness that modern medicine now scrambles to treat. 5 minutes of quiet reflection each evening, that is all Fan Si requires, and it is one of the most effective mental detox habits ever devised. The final habit is not a behavior, it is a belief, and it is the one that holds all the others together. In the Tao Te Ching, Lao Tzu wrote, "He who knows that enough is enough will always have enough." This concept, Jizu, meaning knowing sufficiency or knowing contentment, is the philosophical foundation of Chinese mental peace. It is the belief that the mind becomes toxic not because of what it lacks, but because of what it ceaselessly craves: the endless wanting, the perpetual comparison, the belief that happiness lives somewhere in the future, in the next purchase, in the next promotion, in the next version of yourself. Shizu is the antidote. It does not mean settling for less. It does not mean suppressing ambition. It means training the mind to recognize when it has enough, and to find deep satisfaction in that recognition, rather than immediately reaching for more. Saxby and Rapetti's 2010 UCLA study, published in the Personality and Social Psychology Bulletin, found that women who described their home environments using words associated with clutter and unfinished projects had flatter diurnal cortisol slopes, which is a physiological marker of chronic stress. The homes themselves were not the problem. It was the psychological weight of perpetual incompletion, the sense that there is always more to do, more to acquire, more to fix, that elevated stress hormones throughout the day. Shizu addresses this at the root. When you train the mind to feel complete, not perfect, but complete, the cortisol comes down, the rumination quiets, the craving for more subsides, and what remains is something remarkably close to what modern psychologists call flourishing. This is the final habit, not because it is the last thing you do. It is the final habit because it is the lens through which every other habit becomes possible. You sit in stillness because you do not need stimulation. You drink tea slowly because you do not need to rush. You walk in nature because you do not need to be somewhere else. You put down the phone because you do not need another notification to feel whole. Shizu is the quiet foundation of unshakable inner peace. So let us bring it together. 8 habits, not 8 products, not 8 subscriptions, not 8 apps with monthly fees. Chinese families learn to quiet the heart-mind through Jingzuo, the simplest form of meditation, requiring nothing but a chair and closed eyes. They learned that tea, prepared with intention, becomes a neurochemical reset through L-theanine and ritual. They learned that Tai Chi is not exercise. It is mental detoxification through the unity of breath, movement, and focused attention. They learned that walking through nature for just 17 minutes a day crosses the 120-minute weekly threshold that science now confirms is essential for psychological well-being. They learned that calligraphy activates the brain and calms the body simultaneously, a combination almost no other activity achieves. They learned that putting down the phone is not deprivation, it is liberation. They learned that 5 minutes of evening self-examination prevents the accumulation of emotional toxins that cause chronic mental distress. And they learned that the root of all mental peace is Juzhu, knowing when you have enough. None of this is expensive. None of it requires technology. All of it is thousands of years old. And all of it is confirmed by the most rigorous modern science we have. More than 1 billion people on this planet are living with a mental health condition right now. Depression and anxiety cost the global economy $1 trillion in lost productivity every year, according to the Lancet Psychiatry. And the average delay between the first appearance of symptoms and the beginning of treatment is 11 years. 11 years of suffering before help arrives. Chinese culture did not wait for the crisis. It built the prevention into daily life. It wove mental cleansing into the morning routine, into the teacup, into the park, into the evening quiet, into the very philosophy of what it means to live well. Lao Tzu wrote, "Muddy water let stand, becomes clear. Your mind is the water. These 8 habits are the stillness." You do not need to go to China. You do not need to change your religion, or your culture, or your identity. You just need to stop adding and start subtracting. 1 quiet morning, 1 slow cup of tea, 1 walk beneath trees, 1 evening with no screen, 1 breath at a time. Tell me in the comments, which of these 8 habits will you try first? Share this video with someone who is overwhelmed right now. someone whose mind has been running for too long without rest. And if you are new to the Sino Living family, subscribe. I will see you in the next one.